Welcome to Entangled Health, where we explore the intersections of quantum science, AI, biotechnology, and human well-being. My name is Thomas, and I'm convinced that health innovation happens at the entangled boundaries, where cutting-edge physics meets biology, where consciousness research intersects with technology, and where visionary thinking transforms into practical solutions. We bring together pioneers, researchers, and innovators who are reshaping how we understand and experience health. My guest today is Sadegh Ebrahimi, a physicist and quantum sensing pioneer whose work is quietly revolutionizing healthcare. In this episode, we will explore what entangled health means to Sadegh. We will trace his journey from Iran to leading-edge diagnostics and dive into how quantum sensing is uncovering hidden connections in medicine. We will also touch on the philosophical questions that drive his curiosity, the role of intuition in innovation, and what the future might hold when science meets the unseen. Plus, you hear what Sadegh's advice for the next generation of trailblazers is, and much more. A quick disclaimer, all chats at Entangled Health are a co-creation between the guest and myself, and not an official statement from our industries. Sadegh is here in a personal capacity, so everything we share is just our own take, not the official view of his company, nor of my employer or any other organization. To add a little bit of dopamine, later in the show we'll dive into the Entangled Health question pool, where curiosity lives in Hilbert space. And here's how this works. 1. You submit a question via LinkedIn or episode comments. 1 per listener, keep it spicy. 2. A quantum algorithm running on real hardware picks which one we answer. And 3rd, our guests add their own question to the pool and then answered it live. The rules for now, it's quite simple. Ask anything. The guest might decline, but where's the fun in playing safe? And if you reach 1 million listeners, we might change the rules, but that's a bit far out. Stay tuned, and who knows what the quantum dice will reveal. So we are recording this, and Sadegh, this is really so cool to have you. You are the pioneer in many things, also on this podcast recording, so you're the first one. Congratulations to this. And I think before we jump into the things, we had a bit of a pre-discussion. And could you just share what you first heard when you listened to the phrase entangled health? So what came to your mind, or as a scientist, or on a personal level?
Mm-hmm. So basically, when I heard about your podcast and upcoming, I was excited because, first of all, healthcare as a total as a whole is changing nowadays, and we are seeing a lot of new things popping up because we can detect many things that we were previously not capable, calculate things that we were not capable, do cool stuff, yeah. And entanglement basically has a lot of meanings for me personally. So it resonated quite beautifully with my mindset, with the way I perceive and perceive stuff. I was really excited, and it was cool to see it's coming up. And to be honest, I was not expecting to be one of the guests. I was more excited to hear what people have to say, and when you wrote to me, it was a no-brainer for me because first of all, I know you, and your work for me is very respectable and exciting, actually.
Wow!
So
thanks.
I said yes immediately.
Yeah, this is cool. This is so cool. So. Yeah, thanks. I think the initial idea, just for if there are 1 million listeners, they might know it, but I think we were the first episode. So the idea of this entangled health is really to bring together people from different backgrounds and share. Everyone can learn from the other. So I think my first question would be to talk about your story. So I mean, you've traveled from Iran to Germany. I think you worked at the GSI Helmholtz, and you did found a consultancy. And I think just for the how comes that you work now in quantum sensing in the first place, and was there a particular moment or some stuff that had an impact and also bring this together with healthcare.
Yeah. So, funny thing, I would start from Iran. So I come from different backgrounds. I'm really proud and feel satisfied that I have had the privilege to be in different fields, in different branches, from education to industry and more. And where my journey starts is that I studied physics in Iran. Pretty much early on was clear that I really enjoy it, and I want more, and I want to learn more. But due to the circumstances in Iran, I had to, after my bachelor, I had nearly 5 years of break through the time that I was studying in academia. And in this time, I had an exciting time working in sensing. So if you look at it, I was first a sensor engineer and then became a quantum sensor engineer. Or later on, I morphed into other kinds of quantum technology as well, because as you said earlier, I did some consultancy, so I had to basically force myself to learn a bit more about quantum computing and quantum communication, which is exciting and which is nice. But my passion still lies with quantum sensing. And in general, sensing, because sensing, I can come into this point from here, pivot into this point that sensing gives me or gives us in general the possibility to look into the things that we have no understanding. That's an advantage of sensing. It can give you basically the idea of the possibility, the superpower to look into the things that is fundamentally unknown to us. So that excited me, and when I came here to Germany, basically did a project for my master's in sensing using superconducting devices. So exactly what people use is superconducting computers. So you might say I misused them. And then I went to Helmholtz Institute, GSI, in Darmstadt, and then I did a ion trap experiment. And again, exactly the same thing that people use, not exactly, because it was a penning trap and people normally use RF traps or the other type of traps to do quantum computing. But basically localizing highly charged ions and doing fundamental experiments and measuring with the highest precision possible. The numbers that you throw around in this kind of experiments are mind-boggling. So in this time, because GSI has it's famous and it has a claim of fame in a specific type of therapy, which is proton therapy for cancer. So basically, they accelerate.
You mean with accelerators, and then you just use the particles itself to destroy the cancer?
Yes. Basically, where it was invented. And looking at them, that was where got me excited about applications of new deep tech and high tech stuff for healthcare. And after that, it's fun to know that I came back to industry, because when I say it always, when you feel the heat and the race and the adrenaline of industry, it's a little bit hard to not want to come back to it. So I went to one of the biggest sensing and automation companies in Germany, and among many applications that this company was developing, healthcare and pharma was a topic. And there I started quantum sensing in a whole, as a quantum sensing project in a whole. So basically pioneering it in this organization. And the fun fact is that I got to work with another kind of quantum system which is basically color centers in diamonds and Lee centers. And yes, I got to develop stuff, do cool stuff, know all the community in quantum, because I was very application focused, as you would be in a small to medium sized company, to find applications. And hence I have had the opportunity to speak with the most of the ecosystem in quantum, and know their applications, know their to find the right fit. And I moved to another medium-sized enterprise, and in parallel to all of this, so I have been doing my own ventures in different forms, which I think we can touch base later on that. And one specific passion that I have is also training the future generation. So I teach, part-time also as a lecturer about quantum to business students, which is very important.
And I think we'll touch later a bit on this mentoring topic. I'm just thinking, so when I have you in mind, I always think or recall yourself as the guy who wants to make the invisible visible or something, or uncover the hidden correlations. I mean, we talk about this entanglement. I'm not sure if we can spend a bit more a bit more on the technical side, on quantum sensing itself, if you want to share some things, because I think we will also have philosophers and therapists listening. Not sure if everybody knows what quantum sensing is. So if you want to share some, maybe in lay terms a bit, what you're really developing, and eventually also the challenges of how other industries could help out.
Mm-hmm. Quantum sensing is not new at all. So that's the point that I have to make. Quantum sensing has been there as long as quantum has been, quantum physics and quantum technology has been there. So that point must be made first. And for those that are familiar with the term TRL, technology readiness level, there are things that are far beyond that. We have been using them forever, like atomic clocks, which are connected to every GPS system, or a general term GNSS system. And then you have your MRI machines. They are basically quantum sensors as well. And fun fact is, then you have this kind of classification of what type of quantum technology it is. Is it 0.1 or 2.0? And, sorry, 1.0 or 2.0? And interesting enough is that the atomic clock is a 2.0 from the day it was made. So it's basically, it's that old. In terms of when you speak about a quantum computer of 2.0 generation, quantum sensing, it has been around forever. And what it does is basically it enables measuring parameters using a single entity named quanta. Let it be a photon, an electron, proton, whatever you think in this realm. So basically, you're very sensitive because you're in atomic and subatomic levels, and any kind of small changes can be immediately detected. I always say this sentence, which comes from a paper, which I can later on provide you if you want to put it in the comments.
In the comments.
And it starts with this sentence. This beautiful paper starts with this sentence. Quantum sensing is utilizing what quantum computing struggles and tries to control, namely the noise. The noise that is for others troubling
a noise
them is for us a blessing.
The signal,
The signal, you may say. And hence the quantum sensing has other sets of problems. And I want to I want to explain that. What I mean is basically, for example, if you have a quantum sensor without proper advanced algorithms of filtering, I don't know, of smoothing, any type of algorithms, specifically, they need to be also nowadays for more advanced ones using AI. You will end up with a bunch of very expensive noise.
Yes. I mean, without naming the companies, I had done some experiments earlier with the EEG headband, where you just have two magnets, and the main thing you measure is the muscle potential of the eye movement. So I think if you go to quantum sensing, and you're really in the whatever nanotesla or whatever, what have you, this is definitely a challenge. And is there an idea to if we talk about health and measuring, I don't know, turnover of energy or what have you in the body, I think the biggest challenge is also to get these signals out. No?
Yes. So it's a very good point that you have mentioned ECGs. Because in quantum sensing, actually, people are working to replace the E with the M. But it means electric with magnetic. Why is that interesting? Because when you measure magnetic fields, you get new insights to your body. There are companies, specifically one in US, that is working on basically detecting problems of heart for pre-diagnosis using magnetic field of the signals that are created by the heart. Because, every electric signal generates a magnetic field. When it passes through your body, your nervous system, in doing so, it generates a magnetic field. And this magnetic field not only shows the state of this communication, also it interacts with its surrounding. And when you get to read it, then you have more than one type of information that it comes out, given that you use the right algorithms. Or you can basically work. There are companies also working. I think there's one in north of Germany, even a few in US, a few in UK, as much as I know, and they are trying to read out the magnetic fields of the brain, a brain-machine interface, and that's for me very exciting, because formerly, if you would use a magnetic device to read out the signals of your brain, because it used to be a squid with a few kilos of
cooling.
It looks like a monster that I put my money on the fact that the signals that come out of the brain of the patient would not really represent that patient in a normal state.
In a wild environment.
It will be in an exciting state. So basically, this new technology gives you the possibility to make it very small, very unaggressive, like a small cap that you can put it on your patient or anyone's head, and you read out information.
Yeah, and I think this is something also really interesting for the whole healthcare industry. If you look at how currently, let's say, more psychological or other states are measured, it's mainly via tick boxes on a formula, because we just lack this unobtrusive, I don't know, cap that you could wear, or something like a wearable. That meanwhile you have all these watches that are or you have a ring that is less obtrusive, but I think for the more brain functions or weaker magnetic signals, that's something.
It's an amazing technology. First of all, it doesn't bring you into a state that you're out of normal, you're excited, you're not in a defensive mood, let's say. And the other thing is that you can carry them in future, because still they need stuff that are connected to them. But as every kind of variable in healthcare or in personal well-being is now advancing, they will come into a state that they will be variables. It takes time, but I'm pretty optimistic that we will have them sooner than we think. And in that sense, we can really look into, I would say, preventive medicine instead of basically going towards curing it.
Yeah.
Because now we will have proper diagnosis, or I always make this analogy, because we have it for some it makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense for people in healthcare or people that are basically dealing with patients every day. There is this concept in industry called predictive maintenance.
Yeah, the digital twin, something
Digital
like that.
twin.
Yeah.
And basically, with this kind of technology, I think we can go to predictive health, or predictive maintenance is not a nice word.
Yeah, but I think you're right. So I'm also often brainstorming on this. So if you would have the real signal, you could do quick simulations, and then you could just say, instead of thinking about bad news, why just don't you go out in nature and get a bit stress relief, and by that have a lower cortisol level or what have you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think we can open the door to the next level. So I know you also as a more deeper human. We will discuss a lot on human level, universal connections, more, not claiming it woo-woo, but rather talking about the human interaction. Eventually mankind is just entangled itself.
Yeah.
And do you think that by sensing these, or by having the not necessarily linked to quantum wave function, but to the weaker signals, do you think we open the door for these two things that we could that ancient wisdom knows since thousands or millions of years? So these human connections. So either measuring these biofield interactions, so the interference between two hearts coming together, or the other thing. Really going on things like measuring photonic interaction. So we talked about magnetic fields. So eventually since thousands of years, there's the idea of aura. There have been few papers published that really measure biophotons. So it's in the discussion since long years, but now with these new sensors, we might even go convince the, let's say, more materialistic people. So any comments on that?
For sure. Let me step
Sure, go
back, because we did actually this discussion once, and I want to give it to the audience. Also, why I do not believe, or I'm convinced that it's not woo-woo actually, and it's real.
Very good. Thanks.
That's the thing that I want to emphasize. And still, I do believe that there are things that make no sense. Do not mix them with the things that we are going to speak. It belongs maybe for some people in that category as well. For me, the personal convincing point was when I was doing an experiment at my experiments at the GSI. That I have recognized that there are things beyond our current framework of material science that we have. When I was because when you touch the edge of the science and then try to push it a little bit forward, there's a point that you leave the boundaries of the known science, see stuff that you're sure that the level of our understanding of our current framework of science lacks a lot and leaves a lot to
just doesn't work.
And so I was convinced to look for more. And in doing so, I went through reading different stuff, looking into different stuff, looking the things that were categorized as irrational topics, let's say.
French, maybe.
And I learned that what has been irrationalized at the moment used to be our ancient wisdom, as you said. And when looking at them, I recognize, okay, in our material framework, whatever we cannot prove or detect or measure or whatever, we immediately put them in a non-scientific category.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, as our technologies advance, especially in sensing, because as I've said, I have the idea that sensing opens new doors for us. As we advance in our technology, as we advance in our computational power, as we advance in our manufacturing, we have started detecting signals that previously was not possible.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
aura, and I
Mm-hmm.
would say that, as you said, there are publications that speak about detecting biophotons,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we were not able to measure them because the signal is so faint.
Yes.
It's basically to most of our imaging systems undetectable, but now
Mm-hmm.
we
Mm-hmm.
can see them. And as
Mm-hmm.
we advance our technologies in sensing, I'm sure that they will be turning out into having different spectrums, colors, I don't know, different intensities. As as, uh, as you said, and our ancient wisdom had this included in them.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, we have to be very careful not to believe anything, but we have to
Yes.
change
Yeah.
our mindset to a state of open mindedness to explore the things that we have basically disregarded up to now.
Yeah. And I think there is a movement on both sides. So both the, let's say, more esoteric people who put quantum in front of everything are getting a bit more serious. And I mean, there's even a whole field, quantum biology, to say there is quantum in biology, like the photoelectric effect or the bird's navigation or what have you, or then even quantum for bio. And exactly this is, I think, really super exciting that these fields are coming together and both are willing to open themselves up. I mean, at least some are willing. And I even see that the more conservative people are at least getting less aggressive in defending their purely materialistic viewpoint, because I mean, why not? And then you could even apply the scientific method and for these aura things. If we think eventually I've read a paper earlier in the 80s or so that they claim the body itself is just a resonance, and once you get sick, you get out of tune, like an orchestra. So if some instrument is out of tune, and then you hear the dissonance, and then you could, in principle, measure the dissonance. So that what you just said. And then the question is, could we then build the next level to say, okay, I get this resonance back in tune, and I mean, I'm speculating here, but one idea was that eventually the homeopathic approach is similar to this by means we cannot currently explain, because we treat illness with the same, but just on a weaker level. So maybe like if you're in a concert, you say, "Whoa, you are detuned. Please tune yourself." I'm not sure. So, but I think it's definitely a super exciting topic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you want to share a bit more on openness in science and also the humility to acknowledge what we don't know? Or
Yeah, I want to share a story.
Okay,
My personal experience about this. I remember being having a keynote in a conference, and right before me there was a gentleman presenting about some kind of findings that did not fit into this materialistic perspective of science.
Mm-hmm.
And as being an arrogant scientist at that time, I was basically offended. So I want to say that I was not always on this position as well. I had a phase in, phase out. At this point of my life, I was a hard believer and defender of science, temple of materialistic review. So I got really offended.
I didn't know that.
I was really offended, and I basically did not present anything that I had present. And I went on the stage and I spoke about contradicting what he said. And it took a while, a few years, I would say, till I understood that what he said maybe was not from an expert view, because he was not an expert in the field, and tried to give some ideas with a lot of mistakes, I would say still. But he was trying to present something from an ancient wisdom. And at that time, so it was hard for me to accept. And I want to say this openness does not come immediately. And if somebody questions themselves when they are in the state of accepting and defending the current framework, they shouldn't be too hard on themselves.
So you learned the hard way. Wow.
Take it easy. Take it easy. And there is scientific explanation for many things. We just are not there to basically understand it, and it's absolutely fine. We need to give to science what has been lost in the last 150 years, and that's giving science back the curiosity and the capability to question and try to solve unsolvable, which we have basically said, okay, if it doesn't match into a framework, dismiss it immediately. Don't even think about it.
I think this, you just give the Entangled Health a new mission. Well, because I think it's really about this. So people I also did my PhD thesis and could not explain things, and was also a physicist, and was sometimes a bit skeptic on things that non-physicists claim. Yes, and then you say, well, how can you don't even know the difference between a million and a billion, da 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 da, and then at one moment in time, I think I'm not sure, maybe it's just getting old, moving beyond 30, I don't know. But then, at one moment in time, I think for me the key was to get rid a bit of the ego, and just open up yourself. I'm still working on that, I know. So, but I think this is also, what is really eventually with these new ways of thinking, of putting quantum thinking into the mainstream. I mean, we had this idea. My father always said everything is relative, because he listened to Einstein, but he didn't make the transition to quantum. So everything is entangled. So I mean, it's quite difficult, and I think that's we see currently that many people are working in education, quantumness. There's even some friends, Bob Köcke, for example, who is putting the education of quantumness maybe even in preschoolers, because they are not yet brainwashed, so to say. Yeah, and having different approaches. Like I think we need a different kind of language. Yeah. I'm not sure if you have an idea on that.
I agree with Bob. And I have been actually doing this on and off. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even as a bachelor student, I don't claim that I was as good as Bob or anyone that is doing it now. But as a bachelor student, I have the experience in the heats of the movement of nanotechnology. Mm-hmm. I was teaching quantum physics as physics governing nanotechnology to students in high school. Ah. Yeah. This goes back to 2008, 2009. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the best memories that I have to the day, because their laughter, their acceptance, their openness, their joy of learning something like that stays with me. I'm going to tell you something funny about it. I danced in the middle of the classroom.
Yes, cool.
To teach about spin to them. Okay. In Iran, that's a no-go.
I can imagine.
As a young boy in a girls' classroom.
Whoa.
But they learned it. And I must say that children are very happy to learn about quantum. A few years back, actually 3 or 4 years, 2021. How many years is it? It's like 4 years. Time flies. I had this initiative about called Quantum Natives, and I did some work on it with some friends from the community. It didn't take off, but it had a pleasant result for me. My daughter, which is now 6 years old, at the time younger, I can claim that I managed to teach her some concepts. She knew about photons, duality, entanglement, and a few other things in her own words, and sometimes better than many people in the ecosystem. And I was like saying, I'm proud to have one of the first quantum natives.
Yes.
So it works. So it works. It absolutely works because, as you said, we are after going through our traditional education system, are forced, or our brain is solidified on Newtonian physics, at best Maxwellian physics of the waves, and then it's finished. Then you have to break everything and build it up again.
Come back to the children, like everything is together, and I'm shaping. I mean, this what I observed is, I mean, this fantastic capability of observer dependence. When you look at the topic with the eyes of a children, and then you, I mean, as an adult, you see the whole situation, and the children just they just see what they want to see, and they just live in the moment, and they,
absolutely. And I would like to advocate again, because I have done it before, in your podcast, for a change in 100-year-old education system that we are running. It should be updated. It needs a new perspective. It needs to teach children with a different glasses to look at the world. We need it. We are in a very, very fragile time, and we need to basically change our education system to incorporate basically new neuroscience. Neuroscience, because the quantum is 100 years old and it did not come into to school still. And I don't want to speak about things that we have reached after quantum science, because quantum is 100 years old. It developed into quantum electrodynamics. It developed into unification theory. It developed into string theory, and so on and so on and so forth. So basically, quantum is, for many, it's still a very. You often hear who says, "I understand quantum," doesn't understand it, but I do not agree with that. That doesn't have the same meaning for me, for you, for a child, for an engineer, for a president, and above all for this person that said that, because it's coming from different sources. Richard Feynman said that.
It comes from different sources.
For them, their understanding is on a different level. I never compare my understanding to understanding of somebody that is working in the highest level of string theory.
And I think the I'm not sure if we discussed about this, or I'm quite skeptic that potential listeners might know this, but there's David Bohm, who is having a different approach, so more let's say a more Eastern approach to the quantum theory, and he has this wonderful book, Implicate and Explicate Order, in which he has a chapter which I found super hard to read, but where he's expressing his difficulty to have a language, which is subject, predicate, object, to express the quantumness. And because, I mean, by having the language itself, after we spoke it, we have done the measurement. So it's, I think we rather would need a brain-to-brain interface instead of using language as a collapse, and then everybody's doing their own interpretation of this. So maybe that's something we can
I absolutely agree with you. As I've said, quantum and quantumness is a language. It's basically we use as experts we use mathematics to explain it. Yeah,
some of us. I don't, but yes.
And some of us, yes, and that gives us a different perspective than trying to speak about it in English, in German, in my mother tongue, Farsi, or whatever. Yeah. But still, in these 100 years, we have new approaches of understanding it and looking at it, and many other things. Because quantum physics, as beautiful as it is, as exciting as it is, as exaggerating as it is, it's not a complete theory. It's 100-year. I want to emphasize it again. It's 100-year-old theory
journey.
Happens to mature because of our maturity in technology is leaking to a readiness level for revolutionizing, or not revolutionizing. I always say evolutionizing our technology on a new height.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that the experts, which I'm not one of them, I have to say, in the field of quantum theory or physics theory, because quantum theory is.
You mean in the foundation? I always have difficulties pronouncing this word. Foundations.
Yeah. The foundations.
Yeah.
They have moved far, far beyond where it was.
Yeah.
New explanations, but for even physicists, their language is hard. I don't understand what they are saying, let's say. But it doesn't mean that we do not understand. As humanity, we have a much, much better understanding of quantum physics.
Yeah.
As a humanity, we have a much, much better understanding of physics in whole. What people are speaking now is about century-old physics theory in terms of technology. We can feel it and we can touch it, and understand and use it. That's why it's exciting for everyone now. But for a theoretician or a person from pure fundamental physics perspective, nothing special has happened. These things have been there forever.
Yeah. And I think the interesting part is also the evolution of the let's say of the interpretation of quantum mechanics. I mean, everybody knows of Schrödinger's cat, who apparently seems to be half alive, half dead, unless you ask the cat. I mean, we should not forget this. And then we have this transactional interaction where, in principle, the moment you look at the star, it's generated. I mean, these kinds of transactional interpretation that just like money. So you have a lot of money, and then depending on who is willing to accept it, you give it to him. or we have all the other things. Currently, I'm quite fascinated by the cubism. So this interpretation that we just observe the world, and then we do Bayesian inference. And the more information we have, the more we interpret what we see, but maybe it's not the reality. So I think this is super fascinating, which brings us in principle to the future part. So our fourth act, to the future vision, to dream a bit.
Yeah.
You want to dream with me a bit on looking ahead?
For sure. Because what you basically touched upon is a topic that I am very passionate about. And a few years ago, I was not even considering it science, as many others. And the scientific community owes an apology to the pioneers of this field, such as Mr. Penrose and others. I'm not good with names. Help me sometimes. And, because they basically looked into consciousness as a scientific matter. Did not.
You mean Penrose?
Yeah.
Okay.
Penrose, and we did not follow them. And we were like, "What are you speaking about? You must be too old. You must be this and that." we genuinely owe an apology. But now with the need of understanding consciousness, because we are all hot on the topic of creating AGI. Suddenly everyone like, oh, there's a piece of puzzle missing. How did we become what we are? And then it became the part about consciousness. The discussion and talking about consciousness became something normal. Now we are trying to use them with mathematics, describe them with mathematics, understanding, physics, and it's basically and genuinely changing the way that we are looking at the world. And must also say that we are at the very infancy of this understanding. It's a journey, because, as you said, we cannot even say which one is fundamental. Are we fundamental, or is consciousness fundamental?
Yeah, there's this beautiful idea of dualism versus monism. Yeah, and maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. And yeah,
absolutely. But the perception, and I have to say something. There is evidence that consciousness. Again, this is a mistake that I was making as well. Attributing consciousness to human beings. That's an Homo sapiens. And because there is evidence that even subatomic particles show a degree of consciousness and do collective behavior that we do not expect, that they react to us. So, I always think about it. Everyone knows about the double slit experiment, and we try to explain it. It's a mystery.
It's a mystery. Yeah.
Is it a conscious being? I don't know. Maybe I'm going a little bit too far. Yeah.
Maybe there's only one photon and it's laughing itself.
Yes.
You don't know.
It's basically so. It indicates that we are not understanding as much as we claim about the universe and our being and our whatever that we claim are basically really, if you look at us in a whole perspective, in a broader perspective, we are not that advanced. We do not understand ourselves.
Yes.
We don't understand our connections with other human beings. How are we entangled? How are we communicating? What is basically the communication that we are driving now? Is language our primary way of communication? Is that really the thing that we have come upon? Or do we have other ways of communication? There are evidence which is disregarded and is not taken seriously, was not or is not, or is a taboo even, like telepathic communication. A recent topic that has come to attention of many due to a very interesting podcast. I think I sent that to you before. It's called the telepathic tape.
Yes, the telepathic tape. Yeah.
And interestingly, when they started discussing it, and it came into our popular pop culture and popular culture, then scientists and professionals started speaking about it, because it was not more a taboo. Yeah. For those that don't know what it is, I just give a teaser about it. It's this lady that figures out that with people that have autism and are on the spectrum, they have the ability to communicate and they, especially for the ones that are non-verbal, they have the capability to communicate in ways that is unimaginable for us as people that the society names them as normal.
Yeah.
And this is amazing. This is opening doors, and it's evidence. And I say evidence, and it takes time to be proven. Before we can take it as solid science. That yes, we need to believe in the ancient wisdom, alternatives beyond what we accept as norm of society, and start questioning what we have as taboos.
Yeah, which is in principle, I even like to extend this to say eventually we are part of Gaia. I mean, if you stick to this, if to stick to this game, and I mean, in the past we lived with nature. Currently, we live despite of nature. Sometimes I have a bit the feeling, so that we are living on Earth and not with Earth. But I think there's a lot of movement, and eventually even the good ones win. I don't know.
I hope so. I hope so, and I genuinely wish for that.
Yeah. So
Before, because you brought up the term Gaia, I want to acknowledge one pioneer, which is a lady in US, an American Israeli pioneer, Nari Oxman, and as of I think 2023, there was a publication indicating that we have more man-made material than biomaterial on Earth. So you might have heard about the sentence "more phones than bones."
Wow.
And this is the topic that she put her hand on, and she seeks, and her work is a clear indication of that her idea is working, to basically try to form or metaform humanity into communicating effectively with the nature in a manner that we ask the nature to provide us with shelter, to provide us with food, to provide us with our fundamental needs, instead of us basically exploiting it and abusing it. I needed to thank you.
And so I before we jump into this question pool, I really think I want to build on this. So if we have these new sensors, what have you, do you think it might help us to deploy them not only on humans, but also, I don't know, on whales or on birds or on insects, and try to at least learn their ways of communications, because eventually they have a key. Maybe they have a good reason not to build cars because they just are millions of years wiser than we are. Do you have an idea, or is this just nonsense?
No, it's not nonsense. I'm going to take it one step further even.
Okay.
I'm going to claim that when we have the means of these sensors in a manner that they are non-intrusive and do not harm anything, we can basically start communicating with trees and plants. There is indication. There's a paper, I think, by an Indian university, or actually people in Africa, as a result of their need, they use electric signal to induce growth in food, plants, or I do believe that not only animals, because they have a very high level of consciousness, if you ask me.
Yes. Yeah.
Even plants might be a way of communication. I must make a confession. I often think that plants, trees, are connected to each other through a nervous system.
Yes.
They might be even more conscious than we are. They are doing the act of observer, and we need to communicate. And again, this is an idea for Nari Oxman. She says, if we want to be successful, we need to have a device like an iPhone to be able to communicate with nature. And I think quantum sensing and quantum technology opens that way. Because we might be able to read, but we will be able to read signals from them. We will be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's amazing time.
I just want to park one thing, because I hope to get him also on the podcast, but he doesn't know yet. Merlin Sheldrake, I'm not sure if you heard of him. So Merlin Sheldrake, he wrote this wonderful book about mushrooms. So, and it's called Entangled Life. And he in this series he's really saying that you can take a mushroom which is with the mycelium connected, so it's entangled by definition, and you can split it and then let the thing make their own experiences and grow in it back, and it still behaves as an augmented new higher self. So this is just one thing, I guess. If we replicate what those guys are doing by nature with this new quantum iPhone, what have you, why not?
Yeah, for sure. I see the intelligence in this other types of life on Earth and beyond by simply looking at, there is this beyond quantum computing. There is other alternative computing optimization processes and so on.
Yes, with mushrooms. Yes.
Yeah, mushrooms. And that's what I wanted to mention.
Sorry for that. Still stole your point.
No, it's absolutely good. And I'm excited that you have heard about it. So basically it means that, are we going through the right way? We are stuck on one type of technology and pushing it forward. And unfortunately, it has become a geopolitical issue at the moment. Speaking of technology sovereignty, speaking of technological gap with quantum computing and quantum technology, whereas I do not think the future of humanity lies in one of those. But we are genuinely in a time that we know less than we. No, that sentence didn't come out right. We know less than we know. We know less than we know.
That we don't know.
You know what I mean? Because
yes, I know what you mean.
Literally.
So we know. Yeah.
If you compare it, we know little. We have very limited knowledge in comparison to what is out there.
Yeah. And I think
that's a scientifically proven thing.
And I think the quantum, as it is currently used, is, in my eyes, with focusing on these qubits, makes sense at this moment in time. So we're redoing what we're doing in outside of quantum. We digitalize the world. It has advantages. I mean, we do this interview via the internet, so to say, which only works with bits. But I think we are entangled beyond the internet on a maybe quite subtle whatever signal, or even if we go in other dimensions, which is a bit speculative.
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah. Absolutely agree with you. And what I said does not mean that we should not invest or work on them. These, I hope that nobody goes into a misunderstanding. If we are doing them, it's because it's an evolution, and our evolution has led to creating quantum computers and quantum technology, creating AI, creating semiconductor manufacturing, creating lasers, and whatever. It's an evolution that we have no other alternative. We need to do the evolution. But what I'm advocating for is responsible evolution, responsible technology, responsibility about what we say, what we do, and what we develop, and how we exploit our resources.
Yeah. Cool. And another one before we dive in the pool, because I just had it run and it runs, but it's running. So the quantum computer choose the question. So we are in building tension. But before we go there, you mentioned your daughter, which is a quantum native. Do you have a proposal for listeners or whatever to also grow their network for young innovators, how to navigate unconventional paths? So daring to ignore the ego and try something crazy, like we do with podcast. Some advice that you can give now as a looking back at
at my journey, let's say. I can tell you what I would have done different. Yeah, I don't expect anyone to do it different. Do this. I would have basically listened to what I have been given from the wisdom of my ancestors, or the ancient wisdom that there is, and not immediately dismiss everything. I was in a state that I was even dismissing herbal medicine. So I went. So if you say up and downs, I don't know which one is up, which one is down. I have had cycles where I was completely into getting out this alternative wisdom understood, and then phases that I have totally ignored it and have been in a materialistic state. Basically, what I want to say, I think I said it, don't be hard on yourself. Be open, be kind to yourself, because kindness to yourself is the first step. And then seek the information. Nowadays, you can seek anything. Use your, I would say, use your AI chatbot and ask instead of creating a meme for you to show you how you can get involved with communities that basically are genuine, are balance between science and spirituality and alternative views to the world, because it's very important. The balance is very important. You don't want to fall into an either or, because that's
Cool.
also a very unpleasant situation.
Yeah, let's hope somebody picks it up. So let me go. Let's just looking at the time. So this is so fascinating; it just flies as quick. So I will now start the random computer, and there will come a question. So it just finished. So it's running on an IBM Brisbane machine, and it was a bit in the queue, but it's finished. So and then it's a bit a stupid question, but which nevertheless you agreed to go with it.
Yes,
Let's go. So the question is selected question number 67, which reads, what's the most interesting thing you've ever learned from a podcast guest? I'm not sure where this comes from, but let's go with that.
Oh yeah. So I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
And it's a very shocking. If you It's a very tough question.
Sorry for that.
I learned a lot of things. I really liked the podcast that I was listening recently. Again, I would like to mention it because it was very recent for me, the telepathic tapes. And the level of intellect, the level of humanity, the level of openness, the level of kindness, the level of whatever you call it, of these people, specific people, the non-verbal autistic people, the level that they care about us, made me convinced that although we are not kind on them in many cases, there is a level of intellect, there is a level of being out there that takes care for us. Yeah, that was where I was convinced that because we often say, "Oh, they don't understand, they don't speak, they are this and that," and then when we dive in and we see what they can do, what they say, makes me convinced that even trees are there for us. They are there taking care of us because they have a level of consciousness and beauty and connectivity that they don't. I don't know how to say this. There is something out there.
Yeah, you mean they live rather with their heart than with their words?
They live there with their heart, and they take care of beings that have a lower level of consciousness. I believe genuinely that we have a lower level of consciousness. I'm
Yeah,
sorry that whoever I'm offending, as human beings, as normal human beings, as the society calls them, of course, not as I call them, we have a lower consciousness than many beings that are around us.
Yeah.
Maybe it sounds woo-woo, but listening to this podcast, listening to their beautiful minds and hearts convinced me.
I mean, I completely support this, and thanks for sharing that. And just to add this, I mean, some know that one of our sons, he has Down syndrome, and he's just living in the moment and does not have this what we call neural normality, which might include aggression and putting the ego in front, and living eventually just being here to help us, joining them, to listening more to that we are all one. I don't know. Okay.
Absolutely. We are connected, and some are gifted with capability of understanding more.
Yes.
And they are gifted for understanding more of the universe. They perceive more. I'm convinced it's not a disability, it's their sacrifice and their choice, which at one point of their creation they have taken to be creating a balance between humanity and the other things.
Yeah, that's a beautiful perspective. Cool. So, we have to. We could go. As a guest on this show, you have the privilege to propose your own question to the future pool and then answer it yourself. So you can do whatever you want. So you can go favorite food or even deep philosophical questions. What have you? Go.
So I was thinking of a few, but doing this discussion made me to think about one more, because I would like to, I'm quite sure that you will have a number of experts coming to your show, and I would like to, for those that are not convinced, to answer this question: what does it, or even those that are convinced in another format, what has made you, convinced you that there is more than meets the eye? Or what does it take that you believe that there is more than it meets the eye, beyond the scientific, materialistic point of view that we have?
Good. So we do the transcript. I edit. I will definitely edit, and I would be keen. I hope that the universe picks some random number that makes this question appear. How would you answer it? I mean, I think we answered it throughout the whole hour. Do you want to add something more on that?
I would like to also say something more about this. As I've said, I had phases. And I would like to acknowledge the hardship and the challenging personal times that came into my life helped to accelerate understanding this. Yeah? And I hope we come to a state of mind as humanity, an elevation of our consciousness, that we do not need this kind of accelerating point, but rather everyone is open to understand it and perceive it easier.
Wow, what a closing statement, isn't it? Very good.
Great.
Cool. Yeah. So with this, Sadegh, I think just looking at the watch, and it's early in the day, so we move on. I would be happy to, if I have a bit more interviews done, to have you as a second round. I think we can definitely build on the impact we generated with this podcast.
Okay.
So I really thank you for sharing your story and your vision and openness, and specifically really to explore the unseen that we currently have no idea, and just believing that there is more than the eye sees.
Yeah. And as a closing statement, I would like to say, speaking about them is one thing, and acting upon them and having the courage is another thing. And I would like to acknowledge the people that joined this journey, and we are taking acts on it, and we are moving on it. And it's not just words, and I hope sooner than later I would be able to share about the results of our activity. I'm really excited, and I really am grateful for people like you and the people that I get to interact on these topics on daily basis.
So, dear friends, thanks for listening and entangling to the Entangled Health podcast. Feel free to like it, share it, subscribe on your favorite platform, and if you are inspired, join our guest and submit your question for future guests. Join the conversation either via sending an email, following us on LinkedIn, commenting under the episode. Stay curious, stay connected, and keep exploring the unseen with Entangled Health.